Bartender, I'd like a dry martini. 3 measures of Gordon's, 1 of vodka, half a measure of Quina Lillet. Shake it over ice and serve it with a thin slice of lemon peel.
Yes, sir.
You know, I'll have one of those.
So will I.
My friend, bring me one as well. Keep the fruit.
For me, it was Tuesday.
Welcome to another episode of For Me, It Was Tuesday. I am your host, GQ. Do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button.
I'll shoot the camera first next time.
Like the video, leave some comments on this video and the other videos I've done. Check out culturejunkies.net. Also, check out our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We also have Twitch and Discord, so we are showing up and popping up everywhere. So today, we're going to be looking at one of my favorite films, Casino Royale. Released in 2006, directed by Martin Campbell, starring Daniel Craig, Mads Mikkelsen, Ava Green, Jeffrey Wright, and Dame Judi Dench. This film marks, of course, Daniel Craig's first foray into the James Bond character. And what I liked about this film is it gave us a side of Bond that we had never seen before. Going all the way back to 1962 or 63, I believe it was, when we got Sean Connery playing the role in the film Dr. No, we had already met Bond as a 007 or a 00 agent. He was already into doing his thing, basically. Casino Royale visits the beginnings for Bond. We essentially actually see him before he starts off as a 00 agent. And we see actually the kill that got him his 00 status, because apparently it takes 2 kills. What I do like about this film, and essentially just the whole, every bit of the film is actually really good to me in some form or another. It actually starts off in a very film noir way, black and white actually, and we see Bond, essentially his life before he becomes a 00 agent is all in black and white. And I like that little touch. I like the setup of the scene. I like the angle, the camera angles. I like everything about that scene where he essentially visits a crooked section chief that M has tasked him with essentially eliminating so he can get his 00 status. And of course, once he does that, we go into the customary James Bond film opening sequence. But what's different about this one is it's not a bunch of, naked girls dancing around in silhouette like most of the films have had, which I kind of miss, but I mean, at the same time, it's a new era. I like that they show a little bit of what you're gonna get out of this Bond. They show him essentially as a faceless silhouette, killing a bunch of other faceless silhouettes in a casino-themed sequence. But it shows that this Bond is ruthless. He's essentially, for lack of a better term, he's almost like a government assassin in this particular take on Bond. And what I like about that version of the character, and especially the casting of Daniel Craig as James Bond in this particular instance, you can see it just in his eyes. Like he's got those steel blue eyes of just like ice cold killer. The film itself is just really illustrative of this is a different Bond than what you've grown up with. I personally, of course, grew up in the Roger Moore era, but I didn't particularly like his Bond. My older brothers it gave me a little bit more of a, I don't know, they exposed me a little bit more to the Sean Connery James Bond, so that was the Bond I always grew up enjoying and liking. Of course, I lived through, the Timothy Dalton era, and then of course the Pierce Brosnan era, but once we got to Daniel Craig, it's like, okay, this guy's different. Not only is he not a dark-haired Bond, every Bond before him had, basically had brown or black hair. He has, of course, blonde hair and blue eyes, and it's a different look. A lot of people were complaining about that at the time, but it's like, hey, give the guy a chance. And next to Sean Connery, Daniel Craig is my favorite Bond. So I mean, that has persisted throughout, and I'm looking forward to his next film that, of course, did get pushed back because of the pandemic. But I'm looking forward to seeing what his curtain call is for his take on Bond. But getting back to Casino Royale. Every Bond movie is usually highlighted by some outrageous practical stunt. For example, like in The Man with the Golden Gun, you had the car flip sequence where they essentially jumped a broken bridge and did a full barrel roll, I guess you could say, with a car. Of course, in GoldenEye, you had the dam jump, where he jumped off of the dam at the beginning of the film. So I mean, each film has had some outrageous or outlandish practical effect. In Casino Royale, there's a ton of different stunts, which is awesome. Two of them I'll highlight really quickly. Well, not so much. One of them is a stunt sequence, and the other one is an actual stunt. The stunt sequence featuring Sebastian Fourcan, who is actually the founder of free running and, of course, parkour. French gentleman, he plays a bomb maker in the film. And the interesting thing in that is it was, for a lot of people, their introduction into the world of free running and parkour. And that entire sequence is just amazing. And it's, you know, of course, there's some CGI in there on some of the more ridiculously outlandish, you know, like when they're fighting on a crane that is the top of a construction site. I mean, I'm very sure that that was CGI. And we also run into a and actually it was a record-breaking stunt. I think it's still in the Guinness Book of World Records, where Bond is in his Aston Martin freaking phenomenal DB5 car. That car is it's just amazing. And Aston Martin, if you're watching, feel free to send me one of those. But he actually gets to a point in the film where Vespa's kidnapped and he goes after her, and then they, knowing that he's, you know, high-speed chase going after them, they leave her on the road, and he veers to essentially avoid hitting her. And then I think he flips the car 11 times, I believe it was, or rolls the car 11 times. I think it was, you know, at the time, and I think it still stands, as a world record for the number of flips or rolls for a car in a sequence. And the cool thing about that is they had to do it multiple times because the car was so well designed, it hugs the road. So at that speed, it wouldn't roll. So they had to basically, essentially, you know, do a special ramp to make it essentially flip and roll. So that was another interesting thing. Getting back into the actual, and I'm not gonna even break down the entire story because, again, the film being 14 years old at this point, I'm sure a lot of you have seen it. I'm really gonna focus on my highlights and also the 4K transfer. Some of the highlights out of the film for me personally, like I said, I love the opening sequence in black and white, the film noir style. I thoroughly enjoyed just seeing just how this Bond had a little bit of each Bond that came before him in his mannerisms and his acting and in the way he interacted with people. Like, for example, the two guys that thought he was a valet at the club that he tracked down a signal to, and he takes the guy's keys and proceeds to park the guy's car. And I'm like, well, this is different. Then, of course, he slams the car into the barricade, knocks up, you know, starts off a lot of the car alarms. So it's like, it's Bond being Bond, getting the mission done, but also at the same time, it's like, you know, big middle finger to this guy. It's like, who do you think you're talking to, sort of situation. And of course, he sees the guys later in the evening. I definitely enjoyed that. Another character that I highly enjoyed was played by Caterina Murino. She is an Italian actress. She played Alex Demetrius' wife, and you get introduced to her in a very interesting way. It's she's riding a horse on the beach, and there's some kids chasing after her, and you can see the little young actor who is running behind her, and they have a close-up on him. You can see that, like, his life has changed at that moment. Like, he became a man at that moment. His preference for, probably at this point, buxom, you know, dark-haired Italian women is probably secured. And I'm sure if you looked up that young actor's Instagram feed right now, it'd be full of buxom, dark-haired women. So yeah, I loved her. Honestly, like, she's a very stunning woman. And even though her part was brief, she, in my opinion, is like one of the top Bond girls, period. Even with Monica Bellucci in the mix there, those two are like very high on the list for me. So again, yes, that's a little bit fanboyish of me, but I don't care. Like, she is striking, and I don't know, I'll just leave it at that. Another thing I did enjoy, the poker scene. At the time, World Series of Poker was probably one of the most popular things going on ESPN, next to, you know, the normal sports, but people were constantly watching, like, poker, you know, World Poker Tour and all those various things. So I've read the book, the original Casino Royale book. I've had this book for a while, and it's actually a really good read. But of course, the movie follows fairly close to it, but there's some things that need to be changed. In the book, they're playing Baccarat, which of course is a game you can play at American casinos, but it is not it's a game that's not as much fun to watch. And of course, Bond, would normally play that in the older films, especially in Dr. No. When you get the infamous James Bond introduction, he's playing Baccarat. But in this particular film, they decided to make it Hold'em poker, which, again, even if you don't know the exact rules of poker, the tension and the stakes can be conveyed through just the way the game is set, and then kind of knowing that each person has got, these two cards that play into this, this particular pot, or I'm sorry, not pot, play into this particular run of cards that's on the table. So even if you don't know the nuance of poker, the way that particular scene was shot, filmed, and edited, I love how they convey the tension through just looks, music, tone, and it's just that to me is one of the highlights of the film. And that's something that, again, it's a modern take on, the James Bond plays cards thing, but it's brought into, a more modern view, and I enjoyed that. The other thing I liked, especially considering the 4K transfer on this one, and this is, now as you can see, this isn't just Casino Royale, this is actually the entire 4K collection for all of Daniel Craig's films, at least the 4 that are available right now. So the 4K transfer looks outstanding. The one funny thing, and this is back when, matter of fact, this probably would have been 2007, I think, maybe even probably 2007, about a year after the film, came out, and of course was on Blu-ray by that point. This was during that transitional period when DVD was kind of getting upstaged and essentially replaced by Blu-ray. And I actually bought both versions, just as almost a sense to, I wanted to test the differences and how much was Blu-ray worth, upgrading to. And I actually took both versions along with my Blu-ray. I think I used a PS3 as a Blu-ray player at the time. And I took that over to the great Dadakuji's house, and we had set up, the Blu-ray player, and also we had a DVD player. And we literally, played both, played a particular scene, and it was actually the early scene with Sebastian Foucan. Played that scene and paused it for a moment just to kind of look at some of the essential differences between the DVD's resolution and the Blu-ray's resolution. And Blu-ray blew it away, and that actually at that moment was kind of sold Blu-ray, or sold the great Dadakuji on Blu-ray as far as, being a true upgrade and not just, the marketing, stick and everything. And again, looking at the 4K transfer versus even the Blu-ray, the 4K transfer looks outstanding. And again, I think it's also because this film was more than likely shot on film, and you still have that extra resolution that you can pull out of that film transfer. Well, not so much extra resolution, but extra detail that you can get out of that film transfer. So I'm thoroughly enjoying all of the 4K films from the Daniel Craig collection on 4K. And I will probably review each one of them at some point. But Casino Royale, again, going back to it, that film was amazing. And it's still to this day one of my favorite Bond films. So once the 4K version came out, that was the first one that went in because I had to watch that one again. As far as extras, the way this collection works, you get 2 separate cases essentially. You get the 4K one, these are all 4 films in 4K, then you get their Blu-ray counterparts basically. The Blu-ray counterparts is where you get your extras, so essentially there's no new extras that were created or anything for this particular collection. You're essentially going to get the same standard, a little bit of behind the scenes, director's commentary, so nothing out of the ordinary for that particular thing. But Casino Royale, again, outstanding film, and I'm going to leave you guys with these final words. For many of you out there, when they announced that they were going to cast a new James Bond, a lot of you were excited. Then you found out that the Bond was blonde-haired with blue eyes. Some of you got skeptical. Then that same Bond who was announced was brought out to a press conference on a high-speed raft at the Thames River, or in the Thames River in England, wearing a life preserver, and people made fun of him for that. Because why would James Bond need a life preserver? But you know what? F all of y'all, because Daniel Craig is an amazing Bond, and he does his thing very, very well as James Bond. And I'm like I said before, highly looking forward to seeing how he performs in No Time to Die. So, for all of you out there making fun of Daniel Craig, you guys suck. But hey, for me,
It was Tuesday.
I'll see you guys next time. If you're enjoying our content, please consider going to our Patreon and becoming a supporter. There are different tiers to select from, and we thank you for your support.
Culture Junkies!